Hey everybody, welcome to Ramble Mosey, where we explore all things outdoor recreation and conservation in Michigan. I'm your host, your usual host, Jonathan Jaros. Today, Stacy Bear, longtime listener, first-time hoster, is going to grab the mic for me. Stacy's joined by Julie Clark, the CEO of TART Trails, and Gary Vernon, the general manager for Oz Trails Bike Park down in Arkansas. Gary's joining us live today, along with Stacy and Julie, on a trip to Michigan he's made over the last couple of days, both sharing opportunities that Northwest Arkansas has experienced, but also checking out all the rad stuff we have here in Michigan. So Gary, Julie, Stacy, welcome.
Gorgeous day on Crystal Mountain. Thanks for having us.
I've enjoyed my stay.
Stoked to be here with y'all and learn about Northwest Arkansas and how we might be able to transfer some of that knowledge back to Michigan. I want to jump right in with you, Gary. Bentonville is seen as one of the best places to ride, not just in the nation, but the world. Was it preordained to be this great destination, or what happened?
No, I mean, I grew up an hour north in Joplin, Missouri. And like I said, I used to travel through Bentonville in the back of a pickup truck to race BMX in Springdale in the early 80s. Bentonville was just the little Walmart town, that everybody knew about. And so when I first started mountain biking up in Joplin, and I later moved to Springfield, I went to work at Walmart in high school and stayed there 30 years. So when I moved to Bentonville from Springfield, Missouri, as part of my career, I really missed the fact that I was leaving my mountain bike trails in Springfield. We had several trails that were, pretty dang good. And when I moved to Bentonville, it was like, well, there's no trails there. But I moved to the town north of Bella Vista and rode my mountain bike. There was a lot of development that was where the roads were cut, but they were never developed yet in Bella Vista. And so double track and would turn into rutted up double track. And then I just made a route and I started connecting them with a weed eater and had a nice little 15-mile loop I'd make that was really, nasty, tough, creek bed. You'd have to hop over logs and all that. So that's what I rode. But when we heard about, there was a rumor that the city of Bentonville was putting a mountain bike trail in, I didn't believe it, so just happened to drive into town and see it. And that's when I met Tom, on the trail, and started riding with him and became the president of the local volunteer club. But even then, he had come back from college with, an idea, let's put some mountain bike trails in Bentonville. But it was a small vision then, but it just, as it worked, his vision continued to grow. And I don't think he or his brother ever dreamed that it was going to be the success it is today. Right. But as it kind of evolved over time,
So one of the things, Bella Vista was a retirement community, right? And it was built around golf courses and lakes and kind of this just easy life, right? And so what did those folks say, or did they even notice when you were out in the ravines with a weed whacker and a shovel cutting trails basically for yourself and a couple of your buddies at the time?
It was interesting because we started hearing that some of the retirees were hiking our trails. They found them and they were hiking them. And so, that kind of gave us the, motivation to keep going. But then when we met with the Bella Vista Park Director, Clem Morgan, he loved the idea. And in Bella Vista, it was a property owners association early on, and the common property between the neighborhoods, it was just POA property. It was actually legal to build anything that wasn't a permanent structure. So trails were legal to build, so we kept building them and really made some fun trails. They were just tough because a lot of times we weren't benching them fully. They were off camber, they were steep.
Any of those trails still there?
The actual back 40 uses a lot of the corridor. They've improved them, but there's a section there that's dang near what we ended up with as volunteers. We actually started getting fancy. We had an old garden tractor tiller, tiller, walk behind tiller.
That is fancy.
And we were benching in. But if you ever use a tiller in rocky soil, it's hard work. But we got a little fancier toward the end, but the professionals came through and they cleaned them up, and so you can ride some of the old trail when you're riding the back 40.
So, Julie, when you think about, you've been around for a lot of TART success, and a lot of people in Northwest Michigan really credit TART for getting people out on trails and getting people connected. So what was it like when you first got here advocating for trails, and how have you seen that advocacy shift?
Well, I came from a place in North Carolina, Charlotte, where we had a significant government investment, right, to the tune of tens of millions of dollars that were being put toward trail development. So it was hard there because you had to fight the neighborhoods. They were all going along creek sides because that's what we did in the South. We used our floodplains for trails. So I came from an area that had pretty significant government investment, and also pretty significant fights. I was called a lot of things at public meetings.
But do you think that's because of University of Florida grad, or is that more with the trail advocacy?
No, right? I didn't share that. I did adopt a Southern drawl down there and learn to love bourbon while I was in North Carolina. Get me enough bourbon and I will adopt that Southern drawl again.
Yeah, side note, Michigan used to be the largest rye producer almost in the world.
I should know that
so rye
because
whiskey
Mammoth,
that's
and
right.
they're growing on the Manitou.
Rye whiskey is a big
It's
Michigan
good here.
opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got some good stuff.
We sure do.
Yeah, we do. Gin, I want to just say we're working on it. Anyway, so getting up to Traverse City and Tart, it was amazing because the amount of trail that we had built in such a little area was pretty phenomenal. I think I had like 20 miles in all of Mecklenburg County, which has 1 million plus people with Charlotte. And then I came up, to Traverse City, and I think we already had 20 plus mile on the ground. It was a lot easier. Every project we have always has a negative. There's always going to be somebody who says, I love trails, but not here. Over there. I would love a trail over there. And it's generally their neighbor's yard. So it was really cool. What I liked about TART is our trails are built by the community for the community. So Gary, a lot of what you said really resonated. That's kind of Michigan's brand, I think, is we're weirdly government, not government. Like I'd never heard the word bureaucrat used so much until I moved to Traverse City. And now I'm like, yeah, bureaucrats. But I was a bureaucrat for like all my life. So I was government and I didn't get it. And moving to Traverse City, it was government wasn't doing anything. Like government was doing nothing with trails. So it was a ton of fun to take on this nonprofit based on what the citizens wanted, right? What residents wanted. So that was a fun way to like launch into trail planning and development. And stuff happened kind of quick when we did have government friends, like Sleeping Bear Heritage Trail out in the National Lakeshore. A whole different experience building trail. We got 20 miles done in 5 years. I mean, that doesn't happen with a big linear trail, right? Mountain bike, I feel like we can slip it in a little quicker. Linear trails are a lot more expensive and harder, I think, to get in. But Park Service was like, hey, how can we make it a great experience? And we got really good trail in.
Yeah, so 20 miles in 5 years, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Gary, I've heard you say before that at one point there were 2 to 3 new miles of mountain bike trails going in Northwest Arkansas a week.
That's right.
So, I mean, Northwest Arkansas isn't that big. Where do you squeeze in 600 miles of trail in a 7-8 county region?
Well, in those peak weeks, we were doing 2 to 3 miles a week. That was including some of the state park trails where we were building 40 miles in a year. Devil's Den is just south of Fayetteville, and that was a big project. Hobbs State Park is just east of Bentonville, about 45 minutes, and that system is over 50 miles. Eureka Springs, which is just on east of Hobbs State Park, it now has nearly 60 miles in that town.
So and that's in town. A lot of the, I mean, I don't think that people realize that when you're talking about trails in Bentonville, they're in Bentonville. They're not
in the city limits.
It's not the nearby state park. I mean, you're doing that now, but you actually started building the trails on city property.
Yeah, and that's the magic of Bentonville. It's accessibility to trails from your neighborhood. Kids can ride to school on single track. If you're working at a office in downtown Bentonville, you can take a lunch ride on single track. You can go home after work and just roll out your garage on single track. The accessibility is what makes Bentonville so magic. People can come there and get an Airbnb, park the car, and never drive anywhere. You can eat on the trail. you can, just basically be on your bike the whole time you're in Bentonville.
So what was that infill like? Like, did you have to? Sorry, Julie. You were
No, that part has gotten me from like day one. Remember how I said you're like equal parts inspiring, joyful, also irritating. Like, how'd you do it? Not you, Gary. The project. How did
No,
that?
Gary did it all by himself.
Right? But we have this thing, every home a trailhead. That's one of our taglines at TART, because that's what we want, right? You walk out the door, you get on any kind of trail, whether it's a paved, linear, boardwalk, or single track. Doesn't matter to me. I just want you out safely. Because Bentonville is not a tiny, tiny town. You've got stroads and you've got infrastructure built from in the day when, we just like to build big roads. How did you change that culture?
Well, it wasn't easy at first, of course, but luckily when Tom came back from college in 2006, there was still a lot of green space available. And if like I say, if we started today, it'd be a heck of a lot harder because those green spaces would be gone because of development. And so timing was perfect. There's a lot of negotiation for easements. There's luckily a lot of city property that was available that wasn't being used. And then we got innovative on creating trails where you normally wouldn't think trails would go. There's a park, an old abandoned park that kind of got trashy in the middle of Bentonville. And a trail system was built there, and there was a 10 by 10 drainage culvert that went under a major intersection and ended up in another ravine that was full of debris just because it was out of sight, out of mind, and really overgrown. So the idea was, well, let's use that tunnel and connect the park, raise the floor of the tunnel 6 inches, and allow a drainage to the side so you could ride through that tunnel, put some lighting in there, and that connected that park to the rest of the trail system. And by that, you could actually ride through that tunnel, through that ravine, into the park, into 2 different schools. So that was a school connector. But just getting creative on using property that really wasn't good for anything, just a ditch, and put trail on it. And sometimes you look at it and like, oh, you couldn't really put a trail there, but you bring the right trail builders in, they can build it anywhere. And sometimes you have to cantilever in a bridge for 30 feet, but then it connects the good property where you can actually ride through there. So it just really was like, if we get creative, we can put a trail anywhere. So let's find some green space and let's build a trail there. And we just recently built a really fun hand-cut trail in Bella Vista along the highway that has some bluff, and you have to get creative on, putting some fencing there so you don't fall off the bluff, but also some bridging to connect the really hard pieces that you can't just bench in. But we figured out that with the right trail builder, you can put a trail somewhere.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that creativity of trail building is a big part of it, right? I mean, it's when spending time with you routinely reference trail builders as artists, and you've also worked really hard to put what people would think of as traditional art along your trails, right? And unexpected architectural delights. Can you speak a little bit to that creativity about it and how that's worked? Because I think in some ways I feel like linear trails is a little bit harder, but also as we have the Fred Meyer Trail and TART Trails and we're building a greenway on the Grand River. How do you, in that creativity, balance the need for paved non-motorized hard trails and soft trails? And do you really think about the difference between those two as you're building and being creative in that way?
Well, obviously we do it all. We look at, but if you think about it, a paved trail now can be almost $2 million a mile, so it's really cost prohibitive, in some cases. So, and we've been working with different communities around the state of Arkansas who want to build these paved trails, but they just don't have the funding. Well, what about building a beginner soft surface trail in your corridor that you're planning on? You got a 20-year plan to build a connected paved trail through town. Well, next year, build it as a single track and get it done and get your kids riding it, make it more fun, and later come in and parallel that single track with your paved trail. And that way you can get your bang for your buck now. But one thing I wanted to make a point, one thing that we did early on was majority of the trails were made with an excavator, machine-built flow trail, and we have plenty of those in the Bentonville area. So Tom really wanted to double down. He really liked the idea of some of these hand-cut trails we have around the state, and he wanted to really double down on hand-cut trails. Hand-cut trails are narrower. You kind of keep the natural terrain texture, and they hold up in weather better. So the last few years, we've been focused on literally building trails by hand in the Bella Vista area and just outside of Bentonville. And that's really added to the experience that we have, because flow trails can be, easier for beginners, and those hand-cut trails kind of challenge you a little more. So it's a nice mixture. We try to balance out, because we've got some chip and seal paved trail through the woods that is basically a flow trail that you never have to maintain, but it does remove that organic texture and challenge. But when we add in those hand-cut trails, it's really got our locals excited because it's a different experience altogether.
Julie, a lot of what Gary's talking about reminds me of the Boardman River Trail, or even what you've been working on with the Leelanau Trail. How's it worked so far in terms of both that staged approach and then even like with the Leelanau Trail, the single track is in addition to the trail and beneficial in that sense. How's that worked from user conflict, things like that?
Well, that's the part that I gotta say thank you for, because we had a team that went to Bentonville, took it, and we were like, "Yep, that's what we're doing. We're building a single track because we have a linear corridor." It's the one I came in on yesterday, Leelanau Trail that connects Sutton's Bay to Traverse City. Bentonville inspired us. It's actually something that our guys, so our founders of the Leelanau Trail, are still around, still doing all the maintenance on it. They're pretty incredible. And so we were like, "Oh, is this going to kind of tick off the old guard?" And heck no, they were so excited to have this trail. I'm a runner. I'm not really a biker. I'm a runner. I can't tell you how much your point of like, don't build running trails, because mountain bikers, I think, are generally easier to share with than maybe if you name it another type of trail. But it's been amazing. And we see kids and we see adults. It's a fat bike trail in the winter, which is a lot more fun than trying to just ride a straight old trail on a fat bike. We have hit a couple different places where our municipalities are not friendly to trails. We actually had to sue all the way to the Michigan Supreme Court to build our trail. There's a township that's holding on to no other trails, so they put a cease and desist on our single track that went through. But we're seeing it as amazing, and we want more. We do see user conflicts, and I think you spoke to it a little bit. Getting voices in and hearing people, because we have the commons that Earl, I'm sure, talked about. There's some significant user group conflicts out there. The hikers had been there forever. They kind of claimed it as theirs. Mountain biking was technically illegal until we got the state law to be changed not too long ago at that area. We do see user conflicts there, but I think it's just poor trail planning more than anything, right? When you come across a blind curve and you've got two different types of trails, or we have a lot of dogs that are used to be off leash. So it's kind of, how do we all learn to get along again? Boardman River Trail, that we had the same idea of like, let's just build the trails so we can connect things. We don't want them all paved. We don't want them all 10 feet wide. And the Boardman Ottaway River is a great example of a huge fight to get it in, because the hikers didn't want the bikers near them. So we separated it in some, and then where we got out of tight areas, we're all back together, and it's quite nice.
And is that single track?
That's single track, and some sandy roads that we're forced to go on, which is frankly leading to a lot of trespassing. We don't have that rock here. That'd be nice to have the rock here. We just got a lot of sand.
So, Gay, you keep referencing Tom, and I just want to make sure that our leaders, if you can explain who Tom is. But I do think one of the things with Bentonville, when people don't know the full story, there's an assumption that, well, the Waltons put the money in, and so the trails got built. But you've also talked about community engagement, and I mean, maybe the Waltons started it, and there's a vision there. But Bentonville is definitely doesn't feel like a top-down trail town.
Well, Tom Walton is the grandson of Sam Walton, the Walmart founder, and he went away to school to Arizona. And family members, a lot of his family members are cyclists, and he was, basically initiated in college and became a mountain biker. So when he moved back to Bentonville after school, he wanted to give back to the community and have a trail to ride. So he convinced the city council and the mayor of Bentonville to allow him to build a 5-mile trail network on some property that became part of the city's park system. And if you think about that, 18 years ago, that was a big move that hadn't really been done. You look around now and there's a lot of examples of people who have, cities that have followed Bentonville's model, but back then there was, big risk, big mountain bike risk that's out there, but he got it approved, and the success of that 5 miles just started a whole movement. Now, one thing that we always say is you just can't write a check from a foundation and create Bentonville, because it took leadership from the community, the passionate volunteers who loved mountain biking, and that bled into the city leadership who saw the success of that first 5 and 10 miles. Then after, like I said in my presentation, when we hit about 12 miles, that was kind of the magic number that was enough for people to drive in from outside the region to check out and use the trail system, which also gave enough mileage for the locals to want to get out and use on a regular basis.
And is that 12 miles in one loop, or is that 12 miles that's just
12 miles connected?
12 miles connected. So it's got to be connected.
To be successful, you got to have at least 12 miles connected in town. And then the magical formula of taking that All-American Trail that took that 12 miles of trail and connected it to the downtown square. That was really when the magic really started happening, that, hey, I could drive my car to the Bentonville Square, park at a restaurant, get a coffee, and then hop on my bike and ride all day, because you can ride 12 miles backward and forward, and it's 24, and then you're back for lunch, and you've had yourself a good day.
And those are some solid Arkansas math skills. I appreciate that you demonstrated that.
I'm a Missouri boy, so I've
learned
higher education, but no, it really took Tom's vision. Tom has got to ride his bicycle around the world, different places, and he would always come back with great ideas, and then it was our job to implement them and take them from there. So Bentonville did certainly benefit from being the home of Tom Walton and his brother Stuart, but Bentonville became kind of a test model of what can happen if you add trail. So sure, there were some initial investments, big investments in trails in Bentonville, but then when you get to outside the Bentonville area, communities saw the success. Walmart certainly caught on to, hey, we can use this as a recruiting tool. The vendor network that supports Walmart all of a sudden they could easily recruit younger talent and keep them. And so the rest of the communities around Northwest Arkansas raised their hand and said, hey, how do we do this? And there was bonds and taxes and all that kind of things that were generating some income. So they built trails with that. And now the state of Arkansas is using funds with their state parks budget to build trail, and it's all working.
So when did Bentonville go from we're building a lot of trails in town to holy cow, Bentonville? Like when did you see it, or did you feel a shift in Bentonville? Did you feel a shift in the attitude of trail builders in the community? You talk a lot about the pride that the trails have brought to the community, but when was the tipping point? And did you feel yourself tip over, or did you look back and did you go, oh man, about 12 months ago, we became a global destination?
It was really pretty evident that it was the 2016 International Mountain Bike World Summit. We were kind of the best kept secret in mountain biking up until then. People had heard about us, and IMBA had the largest turnout they've ever had for a summit. They had 600 people because there was a rumor of Bentonville, something was going on in Bentonville. So November of 2016, we had 600 people from around the country and several from outside the country come to Bentonville and left there pretty dang blown away. We had built that 40-mile trail system in Bella Vista by then. It basically opened a month earlier. and we had Kohler started with about 7 miles. Of course, we had Slaughter Pen, so we had enough really good trail to show off. And from there, and again, we had the bike magazine came out at the same time and did their Bible of Bike tests, where they bring out a dozen test riders and 40 bikes, and they did a bunch of social media and then magazine articles using our trails and talking about our community and talking about the different cities around outside of Bentonville that have trails. So really, that period of time in November of 2016 put us kind of on the global stage.
Yeah. So Julie, you've been to Bentonville.
I've not been to Bentonville.
Oh, you haven't been to Bentonville?
No, Beauchamp on my team.
Okay.
I've not.
Beauchamp gets all the fun trips.
He does get all the fun.
Yeah,
I try to make sure that happens.
Because you can Beauchamp can travel with somebody else's luggage. A lot of people don't know that. So you get one ticket, and you get.
All right, on behalf of people under 6'4", I'd like to defend Brian and the rest of us. All right, so.
Yeah, well, I have to get 2 tickets for myself.
Brian is so nice and wonderful that people will just pay him to go with them.
That's true. I would give him a solid $2.75 to come with me. But I mean, so you've heard about Bentonville. We've spent the last couple of days with Gary. Where do you see the future of TART Trails? Where do you see the future? And TART Trails also inhabits a leadership position throughout our state and throughout Great Lakes. I mean, I think a lot of people look at TART Trails, and Northwest Michigan is, for lack of a better term, the Bentonville of Michigan. So how do you see trail building and trail connections moving forward, both through TART Trails and statewide? Are we trying to repeat what Bentonville's doing? Are we learning lessons from? Like, where do you see the future of trail development in Michigan and specifically in Northwest Michigan?
So what I think I enjoy really most, Gary, is the influence that happens when somebody goes, there's something magical about going to Bentonville. I've had supervisors that wouldn't talk to us at all in our townships who went to Bentonville and said, well, maybe this trail stuff isn't so bad. So that's wonderful. The inspiration is there. What I think gets me most excited is the idea of what more can we do together? So we've got, and Michigan is real good at this. We all have these ideas. So you form a group gets formed, and they go and they do their thing. And there's another group that does something maybe similar, close, but they do their own thing. So how do we wrangle everybody together? NMMBA, TART, some of our county folk that are doing really good work, even our running club. We have TC Track Club is like one of the most powerful running clubs in the country. And we all love to do the same thing, which is get out of town and run, walk, bike, whatever the trails. So for me, sitting here these last 2 days, it's just, what if we got out of our own way and we actually worked together, created better visioning maps, because we've got some, hardcore mountain bikers who have some amazing systems they've developed offline, meaning trespassing. How do we put those on maps? How do we work together to persuade the public to just start doing it? And it's not going to happen all at once. I don't want to be the next Bentonville. I don't want to copy Bentonville. I want to learn, and I want to apply some of those lessons. And I think we're hearing them loud and clear. But I want to be Traverse City. I want to be our woods, our water. I want those things appreciated, enjoyed, and stewarded. And that's what I want the trails to do. And I think we've said it twice now, right? We're so close. We're so close.
And with that, wanting to be the woods and waters, I think one of the real wins, and you've mentioned this a lot, the conservation wins that trails have brought, but also, Bentonville's not just a mountain bike town anymore, right? Can you talk about the different industries that are the different industry partners, either from the outdoor industry or otherwise, that are coming to Bentonville because of the trails, as well as, now you're starting to develop your rock climbing, you've got your white water, you've got all these different things developing, and it all started seemingly with 5 miles of trail.
Yeah, there's no secret that, we have a team that actually is trying to bring in industry to the Bentonville area. And the attraction is, you've got the bike industry hub is Southern California. It's very expensive to live there. It's limited on trails. Laguna Beach is is a hub where there's several bike companies around there, and they have very little legal trails, to ride. So it's like, well, we've been hosting industry events. People for Bikes is a partner. They're an industry organization.
Fun fact, the CEO of People for Bikes debated against my brother in high school. She's a proud South Dakotan.
That's right, Jen Dice.
Jen Dice.
That's hilarious.
Yeah,
I'll have to tell her that. But it's pretty easy to convince a bike company that, hey, have an office, save your money on the high prices of California. Your employees can have a better life, with lower housing costs, and you can leave your office on a lunch ride and ride some amazing trails. And we built that Ledger building, that bikeable building, and there's several bike companies in there. Victoria Tires in there. USA Cycling has an office. People for Bikes has an office, and it continues to. We get more folks there. We've got Allied, the Allied Bike Company is handcrafting carbon fiber frames just outside of Bentonville, and that's the focus. We want to basically improve the ability for folks coming to Bentonville to have a job by bringing the industry there.
Gary, who's we? You say we a lot. I'm really interested on the partnerships and the formality or not.
Well, there's a runway group who I work under, and there's a business development group in runway group that's run by Scott King, and he's got a team, and they actively, they went to Sea Otter. I went with them, and we rented a house and had an industry dinner there to talk about Arkansas, and the state tourism group. The director of tourism for Arkansas was with us, and we decorated the house in Arkansas and catered in food from Arkansas, local food. And our rope swing group, which is the Thomas Sturt's restaurant company, we had their chefs come and fly in meat from Arkansas, cooked a dinner, and it was great.
Yeah, nothing's better than cooked hog.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, so many Southern references. So, Gary, you mentioned early on, too, support from the state. And I think one of the things that's been impressive to watch from the outside also is how Governor Sanders has really leaned into not just the outdoor industry, but conservation and outdoor rec at large. Are there things that have helped you at the regional level that are coming from state government and from that state leadership that we can also learn from? There's lots of great lessons, but I think there's a couple different layers. I'm curious about that state level also.
When the Sanders were running for office, and Brian Sanders, the first gentleman, actually is a mountain biker. So he spent some time with Tom Walton. I got to spend some time with him. Tom and I took him on a gravel ride and just, he wanted the full download on everything that's happening in the cycling and trails world. And he understood it, and the governor understood it, and they know it's good for Arkansas. And the state parks program with the monument trails was already happening. They saw the success there, and so they've just been in full support and kind of took it from there. Now, one thing they did was they started the Natural State Initiative, which was having a strategy to really improve outdoor recreation across the state. Put together an all-star panel that included Tom Walton, and so they would sit around on a monthly basis and build a strategy on how to improve outdoor recreation, and economic impact. And that has done a lot of things. But I'll give credit to Governor Sanders. Everything they said they were going to do before they joined office, they've done, and I think the state's better for it.
Well, I think one of the pieces, too, that I've always been impressed by is how the statewide implementation, the vision's there, and then there's also the opportunity to build legislative support for it as well. So it's not just beholden to one or two administrations, that there's a broader sort of movement, kind of an outdoor caucus, if you will, whether formal or informal, and that's been really impressive to watch from a distance also.
Yeah, and Catherine's done such a great job as well. She's a fantastic ambassador for your state at the Office of Outdoor Rec. So, Gary, we know that you have a transition coming up. You're maybe by the time that this podcast airs, you will be the general manager of one of the first bike parks and first lift access bike parks in Arkansas. So that's exciting. I'm sure we'll come down and learn how to do that better from you as well. But what do you see when you look at Bentonville, when you look nationally, when you look globally? What is next for trails?
That's a great question. I think what I'd love to see, and we think it's so important to get kids outside off the screens. And as this virtual world is going to be more and more innovative and really become more realistic, I think there'll be a premium on real experiences. Because I think anybody can grab some VR goggles in a few years and go to the Grand Canyon and feel like you're really there. But I think it is going to be a special experience to get your children outside and actually breathe clean air, get on a trail, get in nature. It's proven that being outside in nature is a mental health benefit, and being able to get out in nature and physically activate your body. That's a double whammy you can't get in a recliner with a VR goggle set. So I think every community should invest in trails just for the future, because my son, fortunately is out enjoying our trails on a regular basis, but he still likes his video games. And those wonderful trails keep him from being in his room too much,
Well, again, thank you so much for all your time. Thank you for coming out to Michigan and spending so much time with us. Well, my last question, and then we'll leave it up to the rest of the room. But what has surprised you about your visit to Michigan, and what do you see next for our state?
Well, I got to go above, the clouds there in a little airplane ride and look at your water, your lakes. And if you had blindfolded me and told me I was in the Caribbean, then I would have believed it, because you have Caribbean island waters with your sandy beaches and your crystal clear water. It's amazing. And you've got the terrain, you got the perfect palette for mountain bikes. You've got more lifts than, the second most lifts in the U.S. behind New York. So you've got a lot of opportunity for summertime lift access biking. We're going to invest in 2 bike parks in Arkansas, and you guys could snap your fingers and have several bike parks here, because the hard part's putting the lift in. So I think there's so much opportunity here for biking, but all types of outdoor recreation that you guys are positioned well.
It's the connecting them all. It just activate a few, right? And then start building those connections.
Wow. Thanks so much, everybody, for hanging out with us today. Big thanks to the C.S. Mott Foundation for ongoing support of Ramble Mosey. As always, thought leadership provided by Parallel Solutions, studio production by Anna Moya. If you like today's episode, check out the show notes. I've got links to Friends of Grand Rapids Parks, TART Trails, and Oz Bike Park down in Arkansas. Gary's got lots of great info online as well. And so if you're looking to dig a little bit deeper into some of the things we talked about today, there's great places to get that. And we'll link all that in the show notes. And as always, if you're interested in getting involved either with your checkbook or with your hands, both Julie and Stacy will be able to help you out and how you can get involved in trails in your local community. Thanks again, everyone. Catch you next time.